Hey guys, it is Seb Ostrovich. No, don't worry, you're not listening to the Weightlifting House podcast. This is the Philosophical Weightlifting podcast. I'm just jumping on to help Josh promote his new book that he wrote in association with, or alongside, I should say, Max Ater. It's called The Weightlifter's Guide to the Snatch, and it is incredible. It talks about the history of the snatch, how to teach a snatch, the technical components, but then the part that I particularly find interesting is it goes through all of the obvious errors of the snatch. And then it tells you how to fix it based on the primer that you would use, the technical variation, the strength exercise. In fact, I was just writing a script for a new video on YouTube about Tian Tao and Liu Hanhua. And Liu Hanhua was doing, he was standing on some 25s and he was doing snatch grip RDLs. I actually called Josh up and I said, Josh, what is this fixing? And he said, in the book, this would be something that fixes a forward jump. It teaches you to be stronger and staying over the bar. And then I said, what else would go along with it? And he looked in the book, and it showed the snatch grip RDLs. And along with that, to fix the forward jump was a below the knee, no foot hang snatch. That would be the primer, he said. And then something like the line drill. So you draw a line on the platform, and you literally just don't jump forward. And then a secondary might be a no foot snatch. And so the book has all of these things. So whether you loop the bar, whether you arm bend early, whether you jump back, whatever it might be, you're going to get a grouping of exercises that target that. Anyway, I'm rambling now. Go support Josh. He is your boy. He's the best what? What am I saying? He's the best. Oh my god. He's the best podcaster in the damn business. So go support Josh and Max. We'll put a link to the book down below. Your snatch will thank you.
My name is Joshua Gibson, and you are listening to the Philosophical Weightlifting Podcast, a show dedicated to promoting a message of critical thinking as it pertains to strength training, nutrition, and well-being. This is done through interviews with experts, high-level athletes, coaches, and people heavily involved in strength sports and athletic development. Pull up a chair, grab a coffee, and let's get on to today's podcast. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Philosophical Weightlifting Podcast. My name is Joshua Gibson. I am your host, and we are joined today by a very special guest. It is not Max Ater, and if it were Max Ater, I wouldn't have said very special. But actually, we're joined by someone who I've kind of looked up to and have gone back and forth, consuming some of the content that's been put out by him, going for a period of time, just kind of chewing on it, thinking about it, trying to integrate it into my life, revisiting it at different time points to see what the fresh perspective is. And he comes from a slightly different background in that it's, bodybuilding, more physique sport, powerlifting, and now Pilates. So I think the guess would have to be obvious to most people who could pick up that combination of things that he's done, but it's Ryan Doris. How are you doing, Ryan?
Great, man. Thanks for having me, dude. Long time I'm supposed to be on this show, so I'm glad to be on here.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited. For people who maybe want a little bit of a little more context for this conversation, you can go listen to the podcast I've done with Ben Esgro. Ben and Ryan have worked together in the past. Ryan and I have kind of talked about Ben, and I think he's like a great mind. So after you guys listen to this, queue up the shows with Ben and then consume all that, and I think he'll be better off for it. But Ryan, before we get into just like hours and hours of kind of discussing your life, where you've been, where you're at, where you're going, what you've learned from all that, maybe you can just kind of bring us up to speed with kind of what you're doing right now and kind of what your plans are and why you kind of have been a little more off the radar.
Yeah. So I've been off the radar. A lot of people don't do off the radar time. They don't sort of leave the limelight or once they sort of get a momentum on, I think we're more prone to sort of keep momentum, but I'm like you, Josh. We were kind of talking earlier. When I moved to not do something anymore, I can't help it. I can't lie to myself about it. I can't stand to be there anymore. So, I think the pandemic has shaped a lot of the sort of the break that I'm on. So, I'm currently on a bit of a sabbatical. I started, say, last year. I decided to kind of just cut down on work. I should say capitalizing work. Um, I usually used to coach. Coaching, online coaching is what I do. I would usually coach somewhere around 50, 55 people. Um, I'm down to probably like 15, 20 now. So I'm basically taking down the time that I use to capitalize and use it for work that simply sparks interest and brings me joy, and it has me kind of interested. So I more or less am financing a portion of my life. It may last, probably, gosh, it's going to go on for a while. It's going to be a few years where I'm just reinventing myself, I suppose. Like I love sharing things on the internet. And I feel I got to the point where, as a content creator, you're sort of scratching to post something because you haven't posted in 3 days, and things like that. And it just felt very unnatural for the whole thing of why we kind of do this. So I don't know. I decided to take a step back, and after much painful wrestling with it, and just figure out who I am going to be in sort of this next phase of this leg of my career. So it's been a lot of that. It's been a lot of that, and I guess those numerous things in there should probably what we should be talking about today, kind of where we're going, huh? So
Yeah, and that sounds like a very mature thing to do, in that it's like something that you said again has momentum. You kind of have your teeth in it. Something that directly impacts business, something that directly impacts like your financial state, and
yeah.
you've decided to remove yourself from it and kind of condense it quite a bit to minimize the impact it has on your life. I don't feel like that's an easy decision to make.
No, I think, well, it's not that it's easy. I think from a socioeconomic perspective, most people don't get it. You have to have money to do it. Someone has to finance it. And I think that's the most important thing, right? A lot. I know some friends. They recently got married. And we were at their wedding just past year. It was beautiful wedding at home in their backyard. Um, and they basically are moving to Austria. Just they're going to ski in the Alps for the rest of their life and just live a life together. And at a young age, because of the socioeconomic situation these friends come from, they were able to sort of find themselves for a few years and travel and do all these amazing things. Uh, Phases are just phases. They don't necessarily come at 9. They don't have to come at 19 or after college. I'm 35 now, and I'm getting mine at 35. I bought mine. Like I'm a first generation American, and now's my time to do it. So it's been enlightening. It's been refreshing. It's been difficult, very difficult. Because I sit at home with my fiance. I FaceTime my brother today, and then I'm on this podcast with you, and you're saying all these things that I've done in my past. So I think there's an element of your ego hearing about your past sometimes, because I don't think about them. But I'm just focusing on the future, and it's been quite nice. So.
This podcast is brought to you by Onyx Weightlifting Co. I've been very selective about finding sponsors for the show, but after much deliberation, in conversation with Chris and Danny, the co-owner and founder, we decided that Onyx is beyond a great fit to support this podcast. Onyx is a brand built on providing the strongest and most comfortable straps, wraps, belts, and apparel to the weightlifting community, with the leather products handcrafted by the same barbell calloused hands that you have. Make sure you pick up something today at onyxstraps.com using the code PHILWL for 10% off of your purchase. That is onyxstraps.com, ONYX straps.com, using the code PHILWL for 10% off of your purchase. And thanks as always for supporting the show. Yeah, I imagine that wasn't like an overnight thing where suddenly you're like, you know what? I should just kind of like check out a little bit or remove myself a little bit and figure this out.
It's a feeling that comes with much emotion. I think I'm just speaking classically, right? Men, heterosexual men who've been socialized through the school system, sports, those things. We're taught just to hit it harder when we figure things out. But I felt like I had this mound of things that I did not have the skills for. if that makes any sense. Like I had a few things that were going well for me. Like I was committed in my relationships and my family. Like I was grounded in many ways, but I think there was many things that I just didn't know to do, and some of them could be simple as, how do I say it, increasing certain virtues, like learning to be more patient, not finding a way that'll get me there faster. Just little things you learn as you live life. So I guess the biggest changes I've been sort of doing in the sabbatical, other than business and things like that, has been two. It's been sort of a physical transformation that I'm trying to undergo and figure out, and then sort of a mental, spiritual how do I say it? Sort of a re-philosophy upgrade. I haven't read philosophy and for quite some time, and so I've been sort of spending most of my time on those two things: reading and working out, and just uploading sort of a new character, right? A new Natty Pro, a new whatever I'm gonna use in my future years to come. So those have been the two biggest things, and whichever one you're interested in hearing first, I can go on about. So
Yeah, well, it sounds like that from my perspective, like being an outside observer. Again, for people listening, if you go to Ryan's YouTube channel, if you just follow all things the Natty Pro, right, and you go watch the vlogs he put out during his contest prep, you'll get an introduction to the content that I was introduced to, like in 2012 or
years ago,
2013.
years
Yeah,
ago.
it was so long ago at this
Yeah,
point.
I'm more or less, like when I did those videos, and those videos, they gained popularity, and I worked for years off of a lot of those philosophies. And when capital, I guess I should call it not work, I should call it capital. All work is good. The ant works and doesn't make a dollar, but and specifically when you live in America, you have to do capitalized work that makes profit. And I think all of us have to spend our 20s figuring out how to make a buck, figuring out how to make a living. So a lot of things went by the wayside. So I feel like it's sort of the ebb has ebbed and the flow is flowing back in, sort of to this phase, to hopefully do more of those with a completely fresher perspective. But it takes a long time, right? You can't just read a book and go regurgitate it. I got to live these things and get them down in my system. So it's been quite nice.
Was that and when you were releasing those vlogs, and again, for people who want to check them out, vlog 2 was the one that I kind of stumbled
I
upon
just watched
somehow.
that the other day.
Oh, really?
Dude, that kid was like, I don't do a lot of things that kid used to do, and I was
Yeah.
inspired by him.
Yeah.
He was right. I think that's what I find amazing about being a human, is that sometimes you can be correct about who you are at a younger age. Like you get bogged down with some of the things of the world, and you start believing in other things. And that kid was just badass. He was tough. He was
Yeah.
tough. He was so tough. And I listened to it the other day, and it inspired me. I said, "Holy shit, this kid's right." And it's nice that I made those, because the truth is, I've really made those for myself. I'm like, to do something, you must believe in something, and my faith wavers like all people. Like I get down on myself. I don't believe in those things sometimes, and to hear yourself say them, I think is crazy, especially when it's 14, 13 years ago, some of these videos. So yeah, that was a great one. I would like to do more stuff like that, but more life experience is needed to bring something out that powerful. If that
Well,
makes
and
any
it's
sense.
no, it does, and it's funny you say that, because last night I was kind of going down a similar rabbit hole. I have a friend. He's my best friend. His name's Tom. He's going to listen to this, so shout out to Tom. He's a great dude. Just like, he's one of those guys that, like, when you talk about Ben, that's how I feel about Tom.
Mhm.
He lets his values lead his actions. He's very outspoken about his values, what he wants, what he needs. He always has those things in mind when he makes decisions about work, about his family, about himself. And I think it's admirable, and it's something that I
Mhm.
aspire to do. And I was going back through our Facebook conversation, because we kind of connected in 2017. We
This is
recorded
Tom, or this is me?
no, Tom. Yeah,
Okay.
Tom and I
I always
record.
ask that question, if you haven't noticed, by
No,
the way.
it makes sense. I mean,
It's like my
but
legal waivers. Like, what did I say?
but Tom and I connected in 2017, and we actually recorded the first 3 or 4 episodes of this podcast, the one
That's really
that's like
cool.
on episode 184 184, I think, when this one drops. It's like 184.
It's
And
awesome.
we recorded like the first 4. And I was like, I'm going to go back and look at the conversation. So I like read through it. I listened to the podcast, and then I watched my YouTube videos from 2017. And it's the same experience you had. But for me, I was like, I know what you're saying and I agree with it. I actually don't think the information has changed that I kind of like would say is from my perspective, like correct or right. But the substance behind the message I felt was really lacking. Like you would say that I would say the same things then that I would say now, but I felt like I just didn't have the life experience or the weight or the understanding. So
Right.
you kind of made this point of you can read a book, but you haven't really integrated it into your character or to your person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I hadn't gone through that process of integration. And I watch all those videos and I'm like, I get it, but I don't get it. And I
Right.
think now I'm kind of at a point where it's like, I mean, just like hundreds and hundreds of books later and thousands of hours of conversation and tens of thousands of hours of thinking. And it's like, I kind of feel like I know where I'm going. I have a
Mhm.
compass now. But then I was just kind of like, it was like reading the cardinal directions without any orientation.
Right.
So that makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm kind of curious, when you made those vlogs initially,
Mhm.
that person, right, that Ryan, that version of Ryan, was that something that came from this same process that you feel like you're going through now, where you're
It's
trying to
yeah,
like,
it's uncanny. It's the exact
yeah,
same one. If I had to describe its attributes, I would say a person who is completely focused on victory. You know,
mm,
I can't conjure this emotion up. I have to be off of some losses. So I should tell you a little backstory about then, and then kind of compare it to now. I ran track as a youngster, as a kid. Um, I was like a stud in high school. Like we used to have this thing back in my high school where like if you could like we used to have this, all high schools sort of have like their athletic department, and they have like uh, their awards and trophies they won over the year. We
mm-hmm.
had this thing uh that if you could take like top, I think it was top 10 or maybe top 8 in state, you could have like your picture put on this wall. It was like a very like I went to like a athletic heavy school, by the way, so like it was like very competitive. This is like pre-social media days. Like my sole motivator in high school was to get my picture on this
Yeah,
wall. Like if you can get your pics, this was like the TikTok of the time,
yeah,
like if you can get your picture of you in this on this wall, it's like every single person who goes in this building has to see you and has to
yeah,
know you, and the idea, I think I just obsessed about the idea while I was in high school. Needless to say, I got on there by the time I was a sophomore. I think one of my
mm,
biggest motivators was that I had an older brother who ran track, and he was on there, and I always thought he was just like coolest guy. He was running track in school at Western Michigan. He ran. So, anyways, I followed his footsteps, and I was really good. My younger brother, who's 2 years younger than me, came sometime later. He continued running track all the way up to just the Olympics. He's a
wow,
2016 Olympic medalist. He took, I think, I forgot what he took at Rio. I want to say seventh or fifth. I forget. And then he won the Commonwealth Games in
mm,
2018. So we're like my mom used to call them phases growing up, but when we lock on to something, we're like
yeah,
completely like, I don't even know if it's healthy, but in this country they reward those who can focus on something. So it's always sort of been our thing. So anyways, track was my world. It was my reality. And then I took a scholarship. I went to Southern Illinois University. I went there. I mean, I was being recruited by a lot of schools, but I went there particularly because the coach I had a relationship from some sort of our summer. We ran track all year, right? Indoors,
mm,
summertime. You just ran track all year round with him, and he was getting a job down there. So I went down there, and dude, similar experience to you. Luckily, it was a scholarship though.
mm.
Totally blew it. Totally just like could not get 8 a.m. classes. I didn't even know what a syllabus was.
Yeah,
I was totally unprepared for the university world. And then it was such a big world, so many distractions. We still had to practice twice a day. New relationships. I think it was just too much it was just too much for me. So I kind of did that thing where you don't actively drop out. You just sort of recede, if that makes any sense. You
Yeah.
just kind of don't participate. So up to this point in my formative years, track was my whole reality. And we were like good, we were like really, I was like really good. I'd won a state, I'd won a state, I've been like that, but like we were really good. Good is like my brother's Olympian good,
Yeah.
And so I kind of lost that whole thing, lost the whole scholarship. And I was more or less devastated by the time I was like 19 years old, and I didn't think much of it. I just came back home, took a few classes at community college over the summer, try to get my grades up and go back, failed those again. I just had no interest in school. I just wanted to just work out. And so anyways, fast forward some time, I come home, I go to community college, and I start picking up books. I just, for the first time in my life, start choosing my curriculum. And I think the thing that I really enjoyed about community college at the time was like, you got to pick your path. There was no choosing your path when I was on that scholarship. I had to be here at this time, be here at this time, be here at this time, study hours at this time. Your year was planned out for you. Who you hung out with was more or less planned out for you. And I just don't think I did. I was just not the type of tree that grows in that type of soil. I guess that's the best way I can put it. And so anyways, I'd lost my whole reality. Then I came back home. I was lifting with a few of my good friends, lifelong friends, and it was just exercising in the gym. I'd always lifted in the gym, but they'd started getting swole, like they started getting swole. And these guys, they had similar stories to me. They went on kind of like soccer scholarships and stuff like that. And they came home and we were just lifting. And so I lifted sort of for like a year and it was fun. But my little brother was like #1 in the country at triple jump by the time he was a senior in high school, and so schools would come over and recruit for my brother. More or less, these schools would come over and they'd see me and they remembered me. They say, hey, well, come with your brother. Come with your brother. So my brother and I went back to school together. We ran. And I hated it again, dude. A second scholarship opportunity, it just didn't bode for me. So now I'm back home. I'm probably 19 at the time, and I thought, what actually made me happy, and it was lifting weights with my friends and reading and sort of taking classes, and that really brought me a great deal of joy. And so I did that in the community college. I started lifting and stuff like that. I did my first competition in 2009. And then I got into my 4-year school, which is kind of where I got on my educational track and figured out how I wanted to study, where I wanted to study. And since I was older, I'd started school, my undergrad technically at like 20 years old. I just bodybuilded throughout it. I was a pro, but I just did. That's really the years where people heard about me. I was in my college dorm room. So those videos, those were from a man who lost a lot, like I think our journeys are who we are, not to sound cheesy. But dude, if you don't got no pressure, you just don't get no diamonds, if you don't have something shaping you, then you'll just not be anything. There's this, there's this book in the Bible. I want to say it's the book, I forget, Ezekiel or Jeremiah. Anyways, one of those old Jewish books. And they talk about, basically God, universe, Brahman, whatever word you want to use for the power of the unknown, right? Is all trying to shape us into something. And sometimes the best thing that people allow themselves to be shaped into is sort of like an ugly bowl. But if you allow it, if you allow the universe to shape you into that beautiful vase that you're supposed to, let it press you, let it spin you, and through your toil, you will see what it's trying to do with you. I think that's sort of what happened in those videos, and that's sort of all that I'd learned. So all that I learned in those videos, it was already like, I was already this champion, like track star in those videos. It wasn't like I was a nobody.
Right.
I was sort of a man getting a second chance. I'd gone pro by then. I'd sort of had a new community in bodybuilding, natural bodybuilding in particular. And so for me, those videos were like, for every kid who has ever dropped out or didn't have a father to teach him these things or never learned them, I've always had this insane thing that anytime I've suffered a loss, it's always been due to ignorance. I've never been a mischievous person that I'm purposely, doing something. Anytime I've ever fucked up, I just didn't know, and you could blame it on whatever, you can blame it on whatever. But the truth is, once you do know, once you do get knowledge, my thing has been to share it with as many people as possible. I'm going through a similar cycle right now. Right now, you can basically liken track to the same way that I kind of lost de novo. And to be fair to Ben or anyone listening, I quit de novo. It was me who quit de novo for a million reasons, right? Back in the day. But anyways, I put everything into into having a supplement company. That was like my bet. And so I think I'm seeing this pattern within myself. It's that like I bet massively. Like I bet like I bet years on something, and if I lose, I get absolutely decimated, as a man should. And so I'm not saying like I've spent the last 6 years of my life just recuperating, but it takes a while to find. You can't you have to knock on a lot of doors before they open, and you have to seek a lot before you find. And I've just been obliged to find the past few years. I think I can force myself to say I had a few good pieces of content, and let me keep trying to force my image and force an identity, or just back the fuck up and just say who am I, and actually be an effective helper to people. So I feel like I'm sort of on the brink of recreating that same person again. I feel like it's all sort of cyclical out here. So life is weird, You find yourself backtracking, and when something fails, you lean on to something familiar. You find home again, and then you can move back forward. So life is a funny thing. I like to think of life a lot like what are those things on the outside of atoms? Electrons or something like that.
Yeah, I think an electron cloud or
Electron,
something.
right? And they can be anywhere, right? They can be anywhere,
Right, yeah.
but generally within the defined range. I feel like that's kind of what life is. There's no necessarily rule for it. So I'm kind of been going through something like that again, right? I with de novo was kind of it was kind of my big plan, and then I was coaching while I was in de novo, and so after it I just went full in on coaching, and I was doing great. I love coaching. I was talking, giving seminars, and I was really enjoying it. But I think I woke up one day and I said, I like coaching, I love consulting, but this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Like I love it. I love helping people. I can always do it, I think, at a smaller rate, but I think it's time for me to build the next thing now. And building takes a while. I think building just takes a while, in particular with the social media culture we live in. Don't get me wrong, I started in the social media culture, but it's getting faster and faster every year, and I find that we're getting sort of less prone to do something real, actually build a real thing that takes a while. So I guess that's kind of what I'm doing here, building new things, trying new things, learning new things, and hoping to bring them to all my fellow people who may have had loss, who may have had defeat. And I think the ultimate thing, a person's life is victory. Where do we get our win? Where do we feel satiated that I feel like myself, and I'm who I'm supposed to be? So that's sort of what my life has been focused on. And I think it starts with the humble, learning how to be more patient, how to have better relationships. And, I know that I can like make $1 million if I wanted to, but it's been nice to learn the basics. It's been nice. So.
And I feel like there's so much we could explore there, and I'm trying to be as cautious as possible build the conversation instead of kind of just like go into the next step, right? Which almost kind of leads you to this point where you're like, well, we have to backtrack. Along that period of time, once you started getting into training really seriously in bodybuilding, and you went pro, and you started making these videos, and I reference them because they kind of represent a time period and a mindset. What were some of the big influences on you? And maybe you can list off why, because I think the reason I sought out, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius or Letters from a Stoic by Seneca are because of the people who talked about them. I mentioned that Tupac had this list of books, and that's where I went. It's like the thing that spurred on the change was a recommendation or a suggestion, and the power that carries. I don't want to overlook that. So when you were kind of like, Ryan 2.0, right? Ryan 2.5, 3.0, whatever you want to call it, whoever you want to call it. What were some of the major influences that kind of led you down this path of going through these metamorphoses?
In the past or now?
Yeah, in the past.
It's always been a ancient scripture. So
Mm.
I picked up Buddhism when I was um, after that sort of track phase. I had this teacher at my community college, Josh Price. He was this crazy guy, man. Like we used to go out with him and stuff and party with him. It was crazy. It was kind of crazy. It was kind of crazy. He was the first person that we were in. He had his place in the city, and we had these fries. It was like 3 a.m. And then he had this curry ketchup. It was so fucking good. I remember. Like he was just a crazy guy. You know,
Yeah.
he had the curry. He had the craziest thing. So, anyways, he was a Buddhist and his philosophy, dude, his he was one of the huge cornerstones into me getting in the philosophy, like
Mm.
and he was a Zen Buddhist, and I read a bit about I read a bit about Zen Buddhism and Buddhism, and I never really got to take on a full practice. I just really admired pieces of it, and that, you know, I was so interested with philosophy. That if anything, I guess I can say that swung my door open to the East. You know,
Mm.
just this whole world of Eastern philosophy. So yeah. From then, that led me to poetry, to the Western classic writers, to Thoreau, Nietzsche, um, and I think at the time, uh, my brain at least, it could understand philosophies and in ancient wisdom books and the Tao Te Ching and those like that, that were more practical and straightforward.
Mm. Yeah.
Recently, I've put on my big boy pants and I've stepped into sort of the mystic books.
Mm.
So I'd probably say the past 2 years, uh, and it sounds crazy when you hear people say this, I've completely devoted most of my time to Judeo-Christian Islam
Mm.
reading. Like, uh, it was probably, when did I say this? 20, I want to say it was like the pandemic, 2020, and we were like at like a dollar store, my fiance and I, and we were like decorating for Valentine's Day, and there was this Bible there for like $1. I swear this isn't a conversion podcast. And there was this Bible there for like a dollar, right? And I've always tried to read the Bible, but it just doesn't make any fucking sense, you know.
Yeah.
It just never made sense to me. I started reading it. I just started reading it. I just started reading it, and I just never stopped reading it. Uh, I think I love philosophy, uh, but dude, ain't the ancient texts have balls?
Mm.
You know, I love philosophy, but some of the things that they say in the Bible and in the Talmud and the prophet books of the Jews, they got balls. Like
Mm.
they will straight up say, "I am God." You know, like they got a ball. Like it's just imagine if we had Star Wars, right? The story of
Mm.
the hero, Luke Skywalker, the devil, you know, Darth Vader, all that stuff. But imagine if we made it real. Imagine if we started believing in Star Wars. And I think here's what I found most interesting about these books, Christianity and Judaism, and as opposed to philosophy. When I was reading a lot of philosophy, I think they give you a lot of ideas, and it's up to you to be the adherent. You know,
Mm.
I think that's particularly what I found interesting. What I find in particular interesting about Christianity and Judaism is the amount of fear that they instill into you. It is astonishing, and what I find most interesting is that it's very natural. You know, like we do have these fears. You know, everyone has a ton of fears. And what I like most about it is that it takes what you might fear the most, take what you might feel insecure about the most, and it turns them into triumph and it turns them into
Mm.
strength. I think in some ways, I've become a Christian this year. I don't go to church, you know, I don't try to convert anybody, you know, or I don't try to tell anybody about it. But I think everyone knows who Arnold Schwarzenegger is, and you listen to him, and everyone knows who Jesus Christ is. And I finally feel like I'm at a point where, how do I say this? I have the literacy that
Mm.
if there's anything, I feel like my mind is finally capable enough to understand these philosophies, um, and they're mind blowing. They're mind blowing. They're mind blowing. I can't believe people figure this out. They are unbelievably mind blowing. They're unbelievably mind blowing. So I think the thing that really put me hip to a lot of these biblical philosophies was Carl Jung. I was reading a lot of
Mm.
Carl Jung this year, and Carl Jung's got something called I don't know if people aren't familiar with Carl Jung. Carl Jung's a student of what's his name?
Freud.
Sigmund Freud. Carl Jung was a little more hippie-ish mystic. I think he maybe smoked a little more weed or something like that. And so, anyways, Freud had his concepts that we all know about, right? Oedipus complex, and if you want to look into Freud, you can look into Freud. The basis of for anyone, mental health has been really blowing up in the past few years. If anyone who goes to therapy or any of this, not all, but so much of what you do is based in Carl Jung's work. Like so much of what we do in therapy and getting to know ourselves. Free association was a Freud thing where you sit on the couch and you just freely associate things, so much of the techniques these people invented were it. So I read this book called The Red Book. It's more or less Carl Jung's memoirs of visions and dreams that he had. This guy basically is, he wins all these, and you can see how I sort of identify with this. He wins all these awards in society, and he's like this great, he's great in his field. He's a leader in this field, and I think something is interesting that I've experienced that a lot of people don't experience. I've won like almost all of the competitions I've done, not because I'm better than anybody necessarily, but when it comes to understanding a concept, my obsessiveness to win is like second to none. I'm like when I was watching Michael Jordan in the Last Dance, I was like, that's totally me. I was like, that's 100% me. And so, anyways, gosh, I lost my train of thought.
You were talking about Carl Jung.
Yeah, Carl Jung. So he's got this book called The Red Book, and I was reading it, and in the intro, he's got like these 3 Bible verses, right? And I just kept reading these verses, and then I would read the book. And I realized that these ancient books, whether it be Buddhism, whether it be Christianity, Judaism, Islam, these are, how do I say it? These are puzzles, They're not literal books, at least in my interpretation. Right. They're puzzles. And if you look at the puzzles throughout history, they all kind of correlate, like when Moses had the law in Sinai, it correlates to around the time people started making laws. It's not like crazy. It's just, this is around the time that we invented laws, 2000 BCE, it's just around the time. And what I look at it is connecting Jung and sort of Christianity and stuff, is that these ancient books, I think, have been a track of our human consciousness, right? Human consciousness is a relatively new development. I don't know how many there were before us, but there was definitely the Homo erectus. There was the Neanderthal. There was like 8 of us before the sapien got here. There was a lot of us around for a long time. I guess you can call it hominids types. But there's something special about the human being, right? We don't collect nuts and put them in trees. We wrestle with ourselves. We wrestle with who we are. There's this, how do I say it, indistinguishable quality about the human being that sets us apart from every living thing. And at some point, you've got to see that we don't know how to drive this car yet. I have the skill. I have the skill of consciousness, and I'm not very good at it. I rouse to anger quickly. I'm not very aware of many things. I make many mistakes. And these ancient books give a lot of answers, right? People didn't have science, so they spent a lot of time. And think about the best book you've ever read, right? It's probably like Harry Potter by this one lady. These people were nations who put every resource, every genius, every artist added into this one idea. So these ancient books, I don't think anyone is more right than others. I don't think anyone is more wrong with others. I've been walking this path of Christianity because I feel like it's accessible. I could speak English, I'm in America, like why make it hard on myself? And, it's just the route that I'm eating first. So I think that's been more or less one of the biggest developments for me, is spending time on these books. Today I was reading about Hinduism and the Vedas, and I'm astonished that I've always have done work in science, right? I will always be evidence-based in my programming and everything I do. But I'm here to say I've discovered that human beings actually did good work before the scientific era. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating. I mean, all the way down to the Egyptians, like they've been doing this concept over and over, unprovoked, uncontacted. And I'm not here to talk about the divine or what's up or down. It's purely the philosophy of what's best for us that I think we've been on search for a long time. But to walk this path is the hardest path of all philosophy. So I think I've entered. Jesus says, "Enter through the narrow gate." There are many ways to enter, and many things to do, and many things to commit yourself to. But I'm looking to win. I guess you can say that. I'm looking for victory. It's sort of been my life's narrative. And I'm not saying that going to church is the answer. I don't go to church. But I do think admitting where you're ignorant is the answer. And there's like endless resource that shows us that we're not that good at what we do. When you want to stop doing it your way and actually learn some advice, it happens. And this is no different than when someone says, "Hey Ryan, I've been trying to do this on my own for 8 years. I finally need a coach." And I'm just a coach. I don't know anything. I'm just a coach. But I've been fascinated by the ancient books. I think that's a good way to put it. In particular, I spent probably the whole last 2 years just reading the Hebrew text, Judaism, more or less a Jew for like 2 years. And now just recently, I'd probably say within the past like 6 months, I'm reading the New Testament and all the stuff on Jesus. You hear the word Jesus and you sort of have this like internal cringe, because it comes with someone forcing you to go to church or give money, or a bunch of bullshit that's going on with church. But a philosophy like from Gandhi or Martin Luther King can't die. An idea is sort of endless if a man can sort of plant it in himself properly. So that's been, how do I say, sort of a reformation of my philosophy. And this is the part where it sounds crazy. I'm more or less devoting myself to it, and I think what I'd like to do is learn these things and translate them best I can for the people, because I don't think it does any good to read these things and then speak it to people in Bible language. You don't know what that you don't know what Second Timothy means. No one knows what this means. Like I think the same way sort of Jesus took this Jewish book and philosophy and put it out into the masses, I've been inspired to do the same, to learn things. So I think kind of the thing that I have along with this philosophy has been the Pilates. So Pilates is sort of, how do I say it? It's healing. It's healing. We dish out a lot of pain, it, and it's nice to sort of have something that heals, and you can touch people and make them better. So I guess I've reprogrammed myself completely. One of my friends said, he said, "How do you know you're not been brainwashed?" And I said, "We're all brainwashed." I said, "Have you ever seen a raw human run it? Have you ever seen a human who's untrained run life? We are all trained. Some of us train better than others. But it's just small things that get in our way. And hopefully, what Jesus always say, he said, "Those with ears, let them hear." So I realized a lot of things. And I realized that bodybuilding was in powerlifting and weightlifting, they're all miniature forms of a religion. Like we no longer do religion in the West. A lot of people just don't fuck with it anymore because it got nasty. It got really nasty. Like they started bringing slaves over and shit. It got bad. It got terrible. And so I think the ideas have gotten lost through what the actions of people have done. So it's been nice to pick up old things as old as Pilates, things as old as the ancient books, and sort of take them on my own and be inspired and see the world from, as opposed to a scientific perspective, sort of a godly perspective. I never thought I'd be that type of person, but it's changed my life. I want to say it's going to be really the main reason responsible for the next chapter of all the work that I'm going to do here. And I mean, I'm not trying to open up a church. I'm trying to work out, and so I'm hoping to put a lot of these things into my community and do my best, teach and be positive and stuff. So,
I mean, this is one of the situations where I like myself am speechless, but I also have so much to say. And
dude, if we need to do like a part 2, we can do it.
No, I mean, we're just going to run it until one of us has to leave, because that's kind of the way I operate when
do people
shit like this happens.
Listen to these whole things as they get through?
I hope that everyone listening stops this section and they rewind to when I asked the question about which books have influenced you, and they re-listen to that about 45 times, because that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I'll obsess podcasts you've put out. You have one podcast from through Fortis EQ that talks about like rebuilding or reframing or creating a new narrative and getting rid
Yeah.
of old ones that
It's
aren't
been going on
functional.
for a long time, this path that I'm on.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite some time.
Well, and like I remember listening to that, I was like, "Fuck, that like really resonated," and I just listened to it over and over and over. And
Here's the thing that I find interesting, right? And I kind of, okay. They have this concept in Christianity where basically you give in your old life and you form a new life. And I think the concept is, what's it to you, right? Uh, what's it to you? What's your life to you? Like, what do you like about your life so much that you would like to keep it? And it's usually a flat response. People say, well, and it's just something defensive. Very few people you meet are living within their passion, are walking step to step, day to day, mindfully, in joy. And the increase of bad mental health, it's unbelievable, you know.
right.
I'm not saying that the answer is religion. I think that's the worst answer. In fact, I think religion had their chance and they fucked it up. You know, I think they had their go at it. But I think there are some simple things that these ancient books talk about that we've lost. And it's not a book. It's not a book. It's just that we have faculties that are amazing. The human being can believe, right? Let's put it like this. I have a little brother who believed, he has asthma, who believed that he could be an Olympian, and he did it, right? He just believed it, right? There was no evidence that he could do it. He just believed in it night and day. A person is simply what we believe in. The thing that I find interesting about these ancient books is that they're so cocky, right? Instead of saying believe in yourself, instead of saying believe in how do I say it? Believe in your teacher. They say believe in the supremeness of the universe. And everything that falls short of that is easy, you know? And so they basically try to work you to your highest degree. And so nothing is a challenge to you. So you walk differently, you look differently, and you behave differently. But I think that's the thing. We don't know how to drive this new vehicle of consciousness, and they come out with sort of, how do I say it, a software update every so often, right? Like Jesus's words were just only 2,000 years old, and then they have a lot of concepts in Islam that are only 1,500 years old. Right? I mean, they're not that old, these things, because we haven't had consciousness all that long. We're a fairly new species, you know. We just started agrarian society is not even 6,000 years ago. Mesopotamia, maybe, like that's like our first evidence of civilization. We haven't been doing this long. So we, at some point, we must admit the earth in its age, we're but nothing. You know, we hear this in science. We've been hearing this forever, but for some reason we're so arrogant to think that we got this, right? We think we can watch a few episodes of Joe Rogan and read a few books and we're going to have all the answers. The answers are within us. They're completely innate. I think the only thing that we need to know is that, how do I say this? Something needs to make you believe that they're aware in it. You know, the human being is a strange thing. When you see a rock, it obliges. A rock is what it is. It is part of this universe. If a rock falls, it obeys the laws of gravity. If a rock says it's time for you to turn into lava and go back into earth, it obeys. A rock does what it's sent here to do. It's living more or less in harmony with God, Brahman, universe. The human being is the only thing in this universe that thinks it knows better. It's unbelievable. It's like the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen in my life. Me personally, I've suffered a great deal of my life from my own missteps. Most of the things that have gone wrong in my life have been from my own mistakes, you know. And had I known better, you know, I wouldn't have made so many of those mistakes. But I think I'm not saying that I know all the answers or anything will give you the answers, but there's a new. I don't want to say it new. There's a perspective. Eckhart Tolle, the spiritual writer, he calls it a new earth, right? There's sort of a Buddhism called it enlightenment, right? There's been many names to call this name. It doesn't belong to one book or one religion or one concept, but there's a power that we have as humans. And I think in those videos as a youth, I was displaying some of that, you know, and I think that's what people recognize in themselves when they saw me. They didn't necessarily like me, you know, they don't even know me, but I was doing something that people knew, but they just couldn't put into words yet. And I think that's sort of what I've always sought. And the ancient books, they have it. You know, they totally nail. I mean, they say all that has needed to be said up into this point. And when we learn more, we learn more. You know, we learn more, we learn more. So I've been sort of fascinated with that. I've been fascinated with how much progress and discovery was made in the old world, you know, because I'm a modern world boy. You know, I've made every dollar from the internet. I've never had a job, you know. So
Mm.
it's been quite nice to go back and take a break and get off the phone and feel what it feels like to just be a human for a little while. And like I said, I had to purchase it. I had to make a ton of money for this break in the have a house, you know, where I'm in a situation where I'm comfortable in home. And you know, so it's been different. It's been nice. I imagine whenever I'm making content again, I'm hoping to really make impact. I'm not interested in just attention and just, you know, being popular. I really want to hear what you were telling me about how you feel about me and continue to spread that, because it's not mine, you know. If no one picks it up, we lose it. You know,
Mm.
you won't get that inspiration. People forget things, you know. So yeah, that's more or less what I've been up to. Long winded, I know, but
No, I mean, I can tell you've had a break, right? Because
yeah,
I can tell you've done a lot of work, right? And honestly, when I was talking to you before we started recording, I could have gone on for like 50 minutes just telling what I have experienced and been through. And it's
yeah.
like I don't feel like like I've discussed it in that way, and it's like it feels very fresh, and all these
Mhm.
ideas start to connect, and all these things, like all these things you've been thinking about and reading about, they like really make sense, come to light. And I feel like listening to you talk, that's kind of what's happening. It's like all of this work, all of this like time reading, you know, reading essentially what I've been reading, which is what absolutely blows my mind is you talk about your story. And I feel like it's a, you know, besides all of the athletic success, which I had none of, I feel like it's almost like a verbatim
Yeah, yeah.
retelling of mine,
Yep, of
where
father growing
I
up. Yep,
like
yep.
I have Carl Jung's Man and His Symbols on my nightstand.
Oh, that's a great book. Hey, if you look at Man and the Symbols, the first symbol he talks about are the four. He used a lot of Christianity for his symbols, right? To understand Carl Jung, you inherently have to understand Christianity. That's how I really got into it. Is that I couldn't understand him. He uses these four symbols of the eagle, um, the lion, the something else,
Mm,
and
yeah.
it's Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. It's the
Hmm.
first four sort of people of the New Testament, and he says how these symbols embody this and all this crazy stuff. And you start realizing that once you understand these things, you're not so much, how do I say it? You're not part of a religion. You're part of what
Mm,
I actually imagine the Illuminati to be. It's these people who know worldly knowledge,
mm,
right? And it's sort of within a secret society, except it's no secret. You know, if you're willing, if you're willing to, how do I? Jesus would say, leave your mother and father, to leave your home. And this is not just Jesus, this is anybody. If you're willing to completely leave what you think you know and become new again in all your ideas and all your concepts, you'll find that the things that are good about you, you keep. The things that are not good about you, you make room for
mm,
them to improve. And if you do that enough, as the story goes, you sort of become this perfect person, like the
mm,
Christ. You know, that's sort of the concept of what we can aim our life for, or as the Buddhists would say, a person who's mindful and who's free of suffering. That's the word they would use,
yeah.
sort of in Buddhism, right? So there's this concept is a worldwide concept, and we read more in the West and we bog our minds down about it in the West, but it's simple. We just don't know that truth, right? And when I say truth, I don't mean like, how do I say it? Like this religion is more true than another religion. I mean
Mm,
truth like sort of arithmetic, right? There's weights to this universe, right? If I take one thing and add another thing, I'll have two things every time, right?
mm,
That is sort of the law. Who made this law? This is up for debate, right? You can call it God, you can call it you can call it whatever you want, but it's the name that can't be named, as it says in a lot of these books. It's just this nameless thing. It's just this nameless something that definitely has laws. You know, you can't look at a chemistry table and not say that there's laws to how these things react. You know, there's laws everywhere. There's rules everywhere, and within behavior, the same thing applies. The same way that the Greeks spent so much, they spent so much time on morality. They were trying to figure out what is the weight of this place. If a squared plus b squared equals c squared, what about those formulas for a man? Or what about those formulas for a living being, for a real life living human being? And we don't know them. We just don't know them. We just don't know them. You can call it, in the Christian Bible, what would they call it? Would call it sin, which is translated to sort of missing the point, right? You're sort of a whiffing, you're swinging and a missing. You're doing the wrong thing. And the concepts are powerful. I mean, the concepts are so powerful. They say things that have balls that any philosophy book I've ever read would never say. Jesus would say, like when talking about he, like in the Old Testament, Moses says, like thou in the 10 Commandments, you should not commit adultery. And then as our consciousness develops, right, let's say 2,000 years after Moses, as human beings, right, like we think differently than we did 2,000 years ago. It's obvious things have to evolve. As the kind of the idea of consciousness develops, Jesus says, like, for sure committing adultery is bad for society. It breaks up families and things like that. It's not good for our arithmetic weight to go out and be adulterous. Yeah, I understand in the modern age there's consensual relationships and it's not considered adulterousness. You can have polygamous relationships, and if you can make it work, then that for sure, that's your truth. But I think Jesus says another thing that's bad. He's like a bodybuilder. He won't say just don't cheat on your diet. He would say don't even think about cheating. And he says if you think about it, Jesus would say it's better to cut out your eye than to throw your whole body into sin. He's bad. The dude's like, I'm like, who is this Arnold? Dude, he is like he is like the ultimate bodybuilder. He's an extremist. He says things like be perfect. And you know what, dude? When I've bodybuilded and I've like been perfect before, I've totally done it. I've totally have done it before. Like I've totally had competition preps where I've made zero mistakes. Like I totally have done it before. And so can you apply those same things that you've been doing, how do I say, sort of on the practice field of life in the weight room? Do you have the balls to take those same concepts and take them into your moral character, where the arithmetic of your actions will build on your life into who you are? We all know the only thing that matters on this planet is your actions. It doesn't matter what you say in your relationships. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you think, what ideas you have. We all know that action equals it. And that's sort of the mathematical truth of this universe is actions. The only issue with us is that some of us didn't have fathers growing up and we don't know shit. Some of us are poor and we don't know shit. And it's not that I'm a bad person. It's not that I'm short on my goals. I just don't know how. And so I've spent my life reading and reading and reading and reading and reading all this philosophy. And dude, let me tell you, I am blown away. I've spent my whole life arguing against religion. In fact, if I'm being honest with you, I spent my whole life arguing how bad it is, how stupid it is, how detrimental it is to society, how close-minded it is. I spent a lot of time arguing against it, and I think I still stand pretty firmly on all of what I think about the human organization. But when I read good philosophy, man, I mean, say what you will about the humans and what they've done with it. That's their business. But good philosophy is good fucking philosophy. There's just no way around it. So I think I've become in love with the philosophy of the ancient books, and I've been walking them. I've been trying to do them. I've been trying to improve on things I do. And let me tell you, dude, it's unbelievable. Things are happening in my life that I never thought would happen. And I don't think it's because I can't say I have some divine hand on me. I can't say that for a fact. But I do think people have figured out, like, oh, well, if you put these hops and barley in here for 10 days, you'll have beer. Like, people just have figured shit out. I don't think it's that complex. And I think sometimes only one person has figured something out, like an Albert Einstein or Jesus Christ or a Buddha or a Gandhi. I think every now and then we have these stars, like an Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I think that's what a lot of these ancient books have been based about. People with revolutionary behavioral arithmetic. And I think that's what Carl Jung's fascination was, obviously, as a behavioral psychologist too. So I've been fascinated with that department probably for the past, going to 2023. It'll be almost 3 years now. And so yeah, it's been good, man. Challenging to understand. I mean, you got to take like a year just to understand what the fuck they're talking about, like the crazy names. And I had to, dude, I learned like a whole map of Israel just to read this book. You know, it's like, you know, like it's a complex thing. These are complex books, but I personally think that if a person can devote their life to any ancient book, read the Tao, and
Mhm.
really try to walk it. You know, read some Buddhist scriptures, read some of the Vedic Hindu. I mean, anything that gets you in touch with this universe, I think will work, but it can't be soft. Like I like stoicism, but I'm a man. I know how it
Mhm.
goes. If there's no punishment for me, I'm gonna not fucking listen to you.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to give me a punishment for it to be real. You know, I've got to lose the competition for me to give a fuck to train hard. I have
Mhm.
to save myself from embarrassment. So I think that's what I like about these philosophies in ancient books. They're hardcore. They're my style. They're extreme. Um, what people decide to do with them individually, that's up to them. You know, like I can't speak for the church or the masses, but it's been a refreshing course and something that I had long thrown away as trash some years ago.
No, and I mean, again, I can kind of relate to a lot of that.
I'm
And
talking so much, man. You gotta ask me some questions
no,
too.
it's great, man. I much prefer this because everything, again, like all this resonates. I had this blog I wrote from like 2015 to 2017, and I was reading a lot of Alan Watts, and Alan
Oh
Watts is
yeah,
Eastern
a
religion,
spiritual master.
Buddhism.
He's a
Yeah,
spiritual master. Amen. Yeah. Yep.
and from my perspective, when I hear you talk about this, I see Alan Watts, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but I see him as a mouthpiece. So
Mm-hmm.
he takes those ancient texts, and
Mm-hmm.
he's able to interpret it for you.
Yes.
Jordan Peterson, I think, is a mouthpiece for
Yeah.
Christianity,
Yep. Yep.
and I think we have a lot of people who are able to do the hard work, so you can understand kind of like the pragmatic aspect of the teachings, and then you can try to apply it. It
Right.
sounds like what you're doing is you're saying, I don't want the mouthpiece, I want the good shit, and I need to figure it out, and I need to learn pre-algebra to learn algebra to
Right.
learn
Well, I think that's it.
calculus.
I think that's the thing though. I think you have to, right? Like Jesus says this thing. He says, "You've received freely, so give freely." You know, and he's right. It's like, and you can equate that to a concept like karma, anything, right? The in and out, the yin, the yang. You know, this universe is a universe of balance. Therefore, there's math in it. You know, in all your
Mm,
behaviors, there's a certain weight to it. You know, and so I do think that I need to sort of be a mouthpiece, but there's no shortage of Christian preachers. You know, I'm not interested in being
right.
a preacher. You know, not at all. I think what I have been interested though in the sort of next phase of life is to be sort of a thought leader and hope that my
Mm,
behavior leads. You know, like no one would have listened to those videos if I didn't look the way I looked. You know what I mean? Like how do I? It's like it's sort of like when I'm currently on the Christian Bible, so this is my reference, right? Like Jesus only did all those miracles, not that necessarily we were impressed by the miracles, but I won't believe Ronnie Coleman unless I see his authority. You know,
right.
like you have to do something authoritative with your philosophy for it to be real. You know, like
Mm,
um, what like M- Martin Luther King's philosophy was nothing if he didn't have the authority, you know. So,
okay.
so with sort of truth comes a sort of responsibility, comes this sort of new authoritative role. So, yeah, I'm not. I don't know. I don't even know where I necessarily stand. You know, if I had to say I'm this, I'm not. I don't think I'm anything. I think I just believe in a bigger picture, and I'm trying to see how it works for all of us as human beings. Um, and I can teach that through my medium. My medium is the human body. You
Mm,
know, that's what I know. I don't say open your Bibles to page this. I know that I can say, all right, do you lift weights? Well, think about this. You know, I know that's how I can work it, and I really, honestly, truly believe. Like, uh, I guess from a belief perspective, I've been believing I believe in sort of a one true master creator. I think I've jumped back sort of to the creator philosophy,
mm,
and I've tried to mimic myself to be more like this person. You know, like this person's very consistent. They're very rhythmic with the moons. If they theoretically, if there were a creator, right? This person is like a person I really like to be like. If you're like a shitty person, this person still loves you. We'll still give you food. We'll still give you a house. This person doesn't judge you, right away. It gives you some time. It gives you a whole life to get it together. So this thing, this deity that at least in the West and Christian God, that they sort of have personality traits collective of, these personality traits, I think, are sort of the weight to how this world works, because there's science for sure. And I think in terms of your logical decision makings, you should go with science. But there's something else to us as well too. That's sort of our second part. That's just as even as our science part. I would say, and I was lacking in what they would call the spiritual part of me, or what they would say in Buddhism or the East, the mindful part of you, or something like that, or your awareness. Same thing you were saying earlier before we got on. So I'm hoping to, how do I say it? I would like to be more like these spiritual leaders, be more like the Buddha, be more like Jesus in what I do. I don't necessarily need to want to preach Jesus. That's not like what I'm looking for. At least that's not don't feel what I'm called for. But I feel like fitness is a great space. I feel like no matter how many fitness professionals keep coming out every year, there's not going to be enough fitness professionals that can keep up with the amount of people who need fitness. Like in America, we're just overrun. We have a crazy shortage in fitness. And I'd like to be more healing. I've been a lot of styles and I've been a lot of ways. And I think I'd like to come for more of the tired, the hungry, the poor, and help more people who need, like, people who have never even done, hip extension. I want to work with just everyone. I want to heal. I want to help. And I'm just hoping just to become a vessel of more of that. And I'm working very hard at it. So I don't know. I feel like I've been called to it. Truth be told, I know it sounds crazy, but I feel like I've been called to do that, and do that for this next chapter of, at least as far as I can see into a foreseeable future. I'm just a man. I can't see very far. I can't see I can't see past tomorrow. I can see past 5 minutes. So as far as I can see, this is what I feel like and I'm still building it. So.
What does that look like for you? Like, what does that vision look like? And I know you said you can't see past tomorrow, and that, like, maybe when it ends or when it changes, but what would that look like?
Okay. I think it's pretty simple. I don't think our internal meters are broken. I think when you feel anxious, it's for good reason. What's his name? That existential philosopher Soren Kierkegaard said, "Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom." Right? It's like anxiousness means make a decision. Right. And I think the anxiousness and the panic sometimes comes from a person just not being skilled enough. Right. But us not being humbled enough to say, I don't have the skill. So, like, all right, let's look at it this way. Right. Let's say your brain has pathways. Whereas before, right, I would have indecision. I wouldn't know what to do. Excuse me. I'd read like crazy. I'd assume that I have to get this answer, that I have to know the answer. And I would read and I would ask and I would seek and I would hope that, the thing that sounds the best to me, sounds a little like it, that's what I'd go with. Now, this sounds insane. I sound like an old person. I'll just like pray literally to the universe that made me. And I'd say, if it's for me, show me. I'll do everything perfectly. I'll read. I'll knock. I'll work just as hard as I've always worked. Nothing's changed. It's not like I'm praying and laying down, but the same way that you can confess something to yourself, it's the same effectiveness if you confess it to a journal or even a therapist. Just saying it helps, just your body is smart. It's like we sort of have like this crazy relationship between our subconscious and our conscious self, like man and his symbols, going back to Carl Jung. One of the most amazing talents about the human being, Carl Jung says, is its ability to make images, right? If I were to tell you right now, everyone listening, imagine a squirrel. You can, like a fucking magic trick, picture a squirrel in your mind. You can picture a squirrel doing anything. You can picture 2 squirrels. You can picture 3 squirrels. Like, you are so unbelievably talented at making images and creating vision that at some point, one of the other, you have to realize that this vision skill, it even runs when you're sleeping. Like, you'll be sleeping and this thing will be making visions. It's incredible. We have within us sort of a vision image processing machine. It's astonishing, right? I really think it's astonishing. And we forget that that thing can help us. We totally forget that that thing can help us. You know, we say it all the time. Oh, I had this idea, or this came to me, or this popped up. Your brain's just this pattern associated machine, and it's constantly making things and making connections. And dude, it just needs time, right? Like one of the things Jesus says is that we're kind of like plants who are just growing, and when the time's right for harvest, the sickle will be put to the wheat. You know, that's all we're doing, is we're getting ready for our moment out here, right? It's like the universe may need you for 39 years to practice on something before it puts you in the big game. You might not be ready for your big thing right now. You know, like you might not be ready for your main thing right now. And dude, the universe has a way, you know, so much so that if you didn't exist, there would literally be a black hole where you exist, right? If you didn't exist, there would be an anomaly in the space that you occupy. You know, that's how like specifically planned you are as a person. Like you are that important. You do have a purpose to others, to your work, and to things like that. And so I think leaning on who I am. I think sort of in this modern world, I forgot who I am, right? I forgot that I can produce images. I forgot that I can believe in things. You know, you get so caught up in like the first thing you do is sit on a toilet and scroll through Instagram. You totally forget. You totally forget that you have these like focused visions, you know, and then we start doing all this crazy shit, making morning routines and trying to get back on track. And it just never fucking works. You know, you just fucking keep reading more and more and more and more and more, keep listening to more and more and more. It's like you're never going to fucking get it, you know? So I think I've just, how do they say in Islam? I've submitted completely. I trust the universe that it has a plan for me. And if I do the right things, if I work hard, if I'm diligent, if I stop when I'm tired, if I get full rest, if I just do the right things. Crazy concept, right? When I say the right things, I guess I can say, how does it bode to sort of a behavioral profit for me? Like, how do I treat people so that when our exchange ends, it's like sort of like the harvest multiplies for me and you, right? Like you get, let's say me and you, for the effort that we put into making this conversation, you put in like 10 seeds, I put in like 3. I'm hoping that your 10 seeds turn into like 1,000 kernels after this conversation, right? That's sort of how the universe works. You know, there's a sort of multiplication that happens sometimes, and you don't know how it works. You have no fucking clue. We know the inputs, as Carl Jung would say. We know that we can look at the moon through a tool, through a telescope, but us as individuals, we can only understand really kind of raw concepts. So I think a big thing for me and what I want to practice in the future is letting the universe sort of do it for me. It sounds sort of cosmic and hippie and non-scientist, but any scientist will tell you, you know, science is what we know so far. And I think science in some ways is one of my favorite things. You know, it's a huge explanation as to how the master creator made this. I've been reading about tectonic plates lately, and it's a genius design. It's like the earth folds in on itself constantly, right? Like mountains raise and then they fall up, then the plates fall back into the middle of the earth, and then new mountains come up. And it's this continuous process. It's sort of a rhythmic process this universe has. And it's really astonishing. And at some point, I've got to give in and just trust it and just focus on what a human being with a Homo sapien can actually focus on is believing in my visions, believing in my dreams. But I get so deterred. I get so deterred from 10-second clips and things like that. So I guess I've been trying to make a return to who we are as human beings and what we used to be, mixing the best of the old world and the new world, and hoping to make a product out of that. And I don't know what the product's going to be. I have no clue. All I know is I'm just going to coach 15, 20 people, what I can handle, and just keep working.
Yeah, it sounds like what you mentioned about kind of giving to like opening up. I call it like opening up to life, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like relieving or removing the illusion of control, because it's not really control. It's this fictitious image of it, and the image the idea you can have is when you're thinking, you're like, I need to control my thoughts.
Yeah.
And like, we don't really understand that thoughts are not really consciously like you can bring thoughts into awareness, but they kind of happen in this really weird way that if you follow them, like, they don't really make sense either. um,
And then I think the thing about thoughts that I find most interesting is that they have zero experience in the real world.
right,
Thoughts have no
right.
experience in the world whatsoever, like zero.
Hmm. Yeah, so basically the idea is like you would diffuse from them, right? You'd remove yourself from them. Not like I need to get rid of them, but like, oh, they're going to exist regardless. So I acknowledge their presence, but I don't give and I don't let that dictate my actions, because actions are currency in the real world.
Right.
Actions make transactions,
And so,
basically.
and you know, here's the thing, and here's what I find astonishing, right? You know that, I know that, we've known that, everyone knows that, everyone would agree with that.
Hmm.
Here's the kicker: how do I turn on the faculty within me into
Right.
which I really believe
Right.
that? Into
Yeah.
which I really believe that. And here's what I found through my past years of research:
Mm.
human beings are the most unbelievably arrogant
Mm.
animals that have ever existed on this earth. You've got to tell me something crazy like I'm in a special relationship with the creator of the universe and a button turns on. I'm not joking. It turns on and your body says, "Yeah, I like it." It's so fucking crazy. It's like, it's the craziest thing I've ever experienced personally, right? Because
Mm.
my scientific mind says impossible. That's too arrogant. Like, come on, who do you think? Who do you think you are? Turns out it works, right? I can, dude. If I don't know if you have a dog or pets, dude, you can tell pets all day about these ideas, and they won't even fathom them, let
Mm.
alone believe in them, right? Our power of belief is what makes us go leaps and bounds. And I think what I've been interesting in is, how do you make the person believe, right? We work in
Mm.
fitness. How do we make people believe in weight training? And how? Like, how? And the formula is all the same, right? Show them one with authority, show them the promise of it, show them how beneficial it can be for them if they follow this way, this lifestyle. And we've been doing it for forever. And I think philosophy in particular falls short of, how do I say it, the actionable item that's sort of
Mm.
needed in getting people to sort of believe in those things. I think human beings take a little more horsepower, than just telling me something that sounds nice. I've got to, if that were the case, every good sexy quote I've ever heard, I'd run with it. I'd keep it
Mm.
forever. But there seems to be another plane of something in the brain, when belief turns on, so.
That's the thing too, is how do you, because ultimately what it comes down to is not this like idea of I need to believe or I should believe or this is what's right, because that again, that's the thought trying to fine tune the dials on the machine.
Mm.
It's like, how do I implement the software and the
But it's
hardware?
simple. I think it's simple, but it's like,
Hmm.
okay, it's okay. If you and your partner, right? If your partner said, give me something, I'm gonna give it back to you in 2 days.
Hmm.
You would believe your partner.
Right.
I mean, and so I guess the big question is, a step back. What goes into that? You have a relationship with this person,
Mm.
that you've developed slowly over time. You've built that trust slowly over time. You've seen evidence that this person is reliable. And when you, how do we say it? When you believe, you get what the Buddhists would call nirvana, or what the Christians would call rest in God, right? When your partner tells you that, I'll give it back to you in 2 days, you rest completely for 48 hours, never doubting for a second that you won't get it back, because you believe in it absolutely. You trust in your partner.
Mm.
Creating that with the world, with the universe, is what Alan Watts has been trying to get to.
Mm.
Can you make that same relationship with the space you live in, right? And it is a crazy thought to think that, um, the universe is on the side of the human being. It is, but I think it's also scientifically evident. I mean, if
Mm.
you looked at all animals, there is no one like the Homo sapien. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's like,
Uh,
we're scientifically like off the charts, dude. Even our biology is different. So I think it's these simple concepts that we have in life, but we don't extend them any larger, right? Dude, within us is like a miniature universe within your head. If you
mm.
can believe a little bit, right? What Jesus would say, ye of little faith. If you can believe a little bit on something like me trusting me that I'm going to be on this podcast at this time, then what
Mm.
else are you capable of believing, right? What is the ceiling, right? And the truth is, well, I don't know. We don't know. And a few people have dedicated their lives to that, right? Even though it might be something as nonsensical as saying, like, there is a God in the sky and blah, 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 blah. Something scary happens to people when they believe it, right? And we can believe in the wrong things, right? We've seen the Nazis. Those people absolutely believed in what they believed in, right? Was the truth. But that's not the truth. It simply wasn't the truth. It didn't bode out well. It didn't bode out well that these people are less than these people. The same way a math problem works, the same way you can believe that something works, or a scientific method may work out. A hypothesis may work out, but once you apply the scientific method, truth bodes out. And I think that belief process is the same way you develop a relationship with a person. You do it with this place. And we have tools, right? They talk about meditation. They've talked about prayer. They talk about chants. Some people have customs. Anything. I think exercise has been like a great one too. I think exercise has been like one of the greatest sort of self practices. So I think that's the concept: is taking everything that we know, but stretching the ceiling on it, getting like being the arrogant piece of shit human that you are. You remember that guy who would build bridges or make nations or create languages? That's us. That's totally us. That's like 100% us. And we've become these meek, meager non-believers in ourselves. We totally think like some other human being in a book is going to tell us what to do. Like, dude, literally, you are just a creation of your mother and father. Like, that's it. You were uploaded for like 20 years before you even had a chance to get your hands on yourself. You know what I'm saying? You have no control of who you are. You're now trying to learn shit. You're now trying to kind of get ahead on the curve. You're but a baby. You're like technically only 10 years old when it comes to taking care of yourself. You know what I mean? So, and I think in that process, we've lost many things. That's why they have this whole sort of like father-son concept in the Bible, because it's true. If your dad didn't teach you, then you won't know it. Where else are you going to learn it from? And so you have to kind of go out and find these things and pick up a new formative teacher, a new formative father. And it's the universe, as Alan Watts would say. It's the world around you. It will teach you. It's not nice. It's not neat. But if you believe in it, if you grow your belief, keep watering what you believe, it will happen. It will happen, And I think the craziest thing is like, I'm literally like the trillionth person to talk about this. You've heard this a trillion times, This is not the first time you've heard this, And I think that's what's astonishing about it, is that the truth just can never seem to die. It always sticks around a little bit. And I know everyone's got their sort of cultural, customary truth and stuff like that, but I'm looking more towards the behavioral stuff to believe in, and to let go or to submit. And that's difficult because we don't have any patience. We think that we can read it and we'll learn it from somebody. But if this person isn't like eternal, if you're not Arnold Schwarzenegger, then who the fuck are you? Like if you aren't the authority, then how can you know? Like you're just somebody with a bright idea. That sounds good. So yeah, I think that's sort of been the biggest turnaround is letting go more, learning how to let go more. And when you learn how to let go more, this weird how do I say it, childlike curiosity comes back. Remember when you were like 8 years old and you would just like play with toys, and you just, well, maybe like even 7 or 6, and you completely had no like real worry. You just did it. You just totally did it. Somewhere along the lines, you stopped believing that you can still run that program. It totally worked out for you when you were a kid, and it'll totally work out for you with a man who can totally go to work and have why would it not work out? Right? Because we don't believe in it. We just don't believe in it. So I think the power of belief has been what I've extracted most from these ancient books, right? Like the customs, the traditions, the specific languages and stuff, that's part of the religion. But there are central things that Alan Watts has talked about that are ours, and we've lost them. We used to have them. You remember you used to have them. You do, but you lost it. And I think rediscovering that thing and getting it back, and getting back to how you were created. You remember it was once yours. It's kind of got fallen upon deaf ears and on new genius thoughts that the ego thinks that it has to whip up a plan, and it's just, the ego is just wrong. It's just wrong every time. You've never made a plan that's actually worked. Like you've started a plan that it kind of worked out a little different, but never have you just said A to Z and it's ever worked out like that. So, but we keep doing it. So that's sort of the nature of it. So I think I've been taking a step back and learning who we are, and through the process, I think I love people more. I I love our whole nature more, our good things, our bad things. So I'm excited just to be a new person in fitness. That's really my goal.
So I think
Mhm.
my mind was kind of, basically fingering through belief narratives, all these concepts in action. And I've kind of resonated with this entire conversation, and I've spoken about how a lot of these authors and books that you've read, I feel like we've been on a similar journey, and I've been able
Mhm.
to consume a lot of, my like Audible's full of Alan Watts. I've a few of his books on my desk next to me, Carl Jung. I mean, like tons of information that kind of is exactly what you're talking about. I've listened to and thought about for years. For people who are not there, where's a starting point for them if they're thinking like, this is something that makes sense. It almost feels intuitive, but that there's just so much, right? And I think, like you mentioned, I took a class when I was in community college about like the English Bible is history, and we talked through it and we kind of broke down the narrative, and we kind of
Mhm.
unpacked the stories. I couldn't have done that on my own. I probably not probably I maybe could now, but again, I take more secondhand information from other people who have read through it and understand it and are able to explain it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I would tell everyone that your antenna totally works, and for years I was a second hander. Uh, really, I was. I mean, most of the information that I received up to this point was through second hand, and I kind of processed it best I can and applied it best I could. And I think that's important. I think you're sort of you're on your search through knowledge. I think you're, how do I say it? I think your fervent search is a part of it. I think it's a part
Mm.
of it. And I think biasly, since we work sort of in strength sport and stuff, we have a lot of young people listening. Uh, I've been talking to a lot of elderly people lately, just in the gym, just creating relationships that I wouldn't, of people of all ages. And they're so different. They don't talk as much as we do. And I can see how with more experience, you just get more answers and you're more silent. So I would
Mm.
say anyone in that phase, dude, just keep on your search and don't give up. I have this, actually. Let me recite this. I'm big in Jesus right now, so let me just quote it verbatim. This is from one of the New Testament scriptures, and it's basically the ask, seek, knock concept. Jesus says, "Ask and it will be given to you; seek and you will find it; knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives; the one who seeks finds; and the one who knocks, the door will be open." And here's where he's badass. He said, "Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if you ask for a fish, you'll give him a snake?" He said, "If you then are evil and know how to give good gifts to your own son, then how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts when you ask him?" And he's right, right? Like, if I'm smart enough to say, if my niece asks me for a bread, I'm not gonna give her a stone. I'm sensible. Do you
Mm.
not believe that this universe is on your side? That for what you're looking for, you'll find. Like, what? And then if you don't believe, then why? Right? Then why? What I? It's like I said earlier. What's it to you? And I think Eckhart Tolle nails it. Eckhart Tolle says in New Earth, he says, anytime you're using the word "I," it's an ego formation, right? So I would say for these people who are on this journey of seeking and reading, um, erase everything that doesn't serve you. If you find that you have something and you toil
Mm.
about it, drop it, right? If you find that you hang on to something and it's become not good for you, drop it. And that's hard though. That's hard. A good book that I would actually recommend to people would be this Eckhart Tolle book I'm talking about. It's called A New Earth. It's a difficult read. uh Eckhart Tolle is like, he's like a prophet, dude. He's like fucking good. He's like as good as these Bible people. He's so good. He essentially talks about, it's Buddhism kind of the school
Mm.
he's leaning in. Uh, I should also say I find an insane amount of correlation between Jesus Christ and the Buddha. It's like unbelievably close. It's like incredible. It's like, and these are two separate worlds. Two separate ideas that came around the same time, just with no communication between each other. I find it astonishing that human consciousness flowered around these concepts around the same time, right? And they kind of wrote it. And like, I'm sure you can learn a lot from Harry Potter, but you got to sit there for a few hours, I'm sure, right? And it's the same idea. If you want to really learn the lessons of Harry Potter, seek, knock harder, knock on every door. If you turn over every stone in this universe, and if it's true, and if it's for you, eventually it will turn. I mean, the world isn't unlimited. There's nothing for you on the moon. It's here in your space. So, I would say for anyone who's on a search, go tirelessly. And when you stumble, dude, just stumble, right? If it's meant for you to be recovered, the universe will nourish you. It'll get you back on your feet. Like you said earlier, it all worked out, right? And the truth is, it doesn't always work out for a lot of people. It just doesn't. So I really believe that on the search for knowledge, keep searching. I'm going to continue searching. I don't think I have all the answers. I'm but 35 years old. My perspective will change in some time. It's I think even as simple as this too. Like the first time I saw the American movie Forrest Gump, I don't know, I was a child, and I remember how good it was as a child. I recently watched it again. I heard this quote. I recently watched it again as an adult. The first time I watched Forrest Gump, it felt like I watched it through like a peephole. The second time I watched it, it felt like I was watching it on like a rooftop. Like I'm awake. I'm a human being. I can sense more, right? My brain is more lively. So I would say, look at things from your perspective, and then look at them again, and search endlessly, right? This universe is for you. If this universe is not for you, then why are we at the top of the food chain? If this universe is not for you, right, then why are we the smartest? What about all these damn sea creatures? What the hell's going on? Like, why are we just number one in everything? Like, why do we have first cut of the earth? Why do we have society? I think at some point we have to believe that human beings are really set apart for whatever reason, for whatever you want to believe, for whatever cultural background you want to come from. They're set apart. And the second thing, as Carl Jung would say, your visions are not going to stop. You have to believe that you're set with some internal clock that almost knows you and almost knows what you're supposed to be doing, but you don't know it, right? It's the same way, like, how do I say it? If I were to take an acorn and I just planted it in the ground, I would have no clue that in 100 years that thing would be the mightiest oak you'd ever seen. Give it time. Give it time. Give it time. Like, things in this universe take a while. The Himalayas are a still rising mountain. They're still going higher and higher. The Mount Everest is getting higher every time somebody climbs it. So this universe is not a still universe. It's a universe of rhythm and pattern and quarter moons and full moons. And not to sound like some, spiritual guru, but you're part of it. You're not a Martian. You're totally from this thing that you stare and look at in awe. It is you as well too. And I know we've heard this a million times, but at some point you've got to believe that. I mean, at some point you have to give up everything else and believe what you are. And then once you believe that, the world opens to you. I really believe, in my opinion. Once you let go of, and you have to go through these to see the value of what we are. That's part of, I think, what makes a human being special. So, keep knocking, live the wrong philosophy for a few years. I've done that many times, right? Live wrong, live with the wrong perspective, change your perspectives. The tides change constantly. This is a world of change. The Christians call it a living God. That's what they call God. It's a living, moving thing. It's not a dead concept, and you're part of it. And you're up to bat right now. You're alive. There are many in cemeteries. There are many who haven't gotten here yet. And for some reason, you're up to bat. And for some reason, you're searching for these answers, and all the knowledge and all the things that you'll accumulate, hopefully, if you seek righteously basically meaning not to miss the point, I guess they would say, it will manifest. That acorn will grow into a mighty oak if you give it time, if you give it the right soil, if you give it the right environment. But if I were to put that acorn on, on a rocky path, it would sprout and then burn out very quickly. It's not in the right place. So search for what's for you, search for the time to be selfish when it's time to be selfish, and live your long life and know that it's all about you. These television shows and social media channels, they're not for you. They're for someone to make money. Though they be entertaining, though they're helpful for us, they're not for our lives. So if you're fervent on the search for life, Me now in my mid 30s, I finally have the balls enough to step into the ancient books. They're
Mm.
scary books. I am not telling anyone to go convert. Could have more little interest in doing missionary work than anything. But I'm sharing my experience, and I found that if you keep seeking, if you keep changing who you're willing to be, it's not even about identifying as a Christian or a Jew or anything. It's just keep seeking. Don't be afraid to be anything. What's it to you? Who cares if you were a weightlifter? Who cares if you were a championship bodybuilder? Like, totally, what's it to you? Like, you just got here. Like, move on, keep moving. So I would say be fervent in your search, like Jesus said. Even he said, if your son asks for bread, would you give him a stone? He said no. And that's the thing. I totally suck. I totally am not good at this life. So what do I think that the master, this universe, wouldn't give me what's for me? I mean, it's evident that it's on my side. I think there's more than enough scientific evidence that shows that the human being, against all odds, is the star of the show. I can't get over it. I just cannot get over it. I mean, the statistical probability seems scientifically impossible. It seems more like choice, specific choice. And even if that's not true, if you believe that, a new thing will happen in your brain that you've never felt before. You'll be like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan believed those championships were his. I don't know what overcame him. I don't know what possessed the man, but that's our great power, our power to believe in something fervently. And I think when we get a sample of the truth being the behavioral arithmetic that suits you, that suits peace on all sides around you, I think that's what we're all looking for. And very seldomly do I think we'll get these answers in other people, because unless these people were a walking, living testament like the Buddha who discovered enlightenment, then these people don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. So I think find your thing, and once you find it, be ready to do whatever that gift tells you to do. And you know it because you don't stop thinking about it. You have dreams about it. It keeps coming up to you. Listen to it. Carl Jung's right. Listen to that subconscious, the collective subconscious, So I would say seek fervently, seek endlessly, live a life, be open, let coincidences happen, and enjoy.
And I know you are kind of, I don't know, coming off of the hiatus or going to recede back into it. But for people who are listening and think that, there's obviously a lot there. I mean, as you're talking, I'm thinking about all the influences and all of the things I've thought about and read. So I think, again, this might take a few listens for people to kind of grasp it. But if they want to talk more about it or to chat more or to kind of, I don't know, reach out to you for some reason, is there a channel to do that?
Yeah, just, I don't know, Instagram. I'm not like, how do I say this? I'm like totally not an influencer. Like, I've come to realize that. I tried for a few years, like, and I have good influencer friends. I really do. Like, I hung out with them for years and did stuff with them for years, and it's just fucking like, I'm just like an athlete who likes to read. That's like totally my shtick. That's like my whole thing. So ask. I'm a normal person. I'm not like on Instagram every day. I'll get okay. I'll get to a point where I'm on there. So if you have a message for me, just shoot me a message, shoot me a comment. Eventually I'll see it. Eventually shoot me an email. I'll see it eventually. But my life isn't owned to answering internet questions. But I do like to get on Instagram and answer them. So eventually I'll be back on Instagram every day. It's my main marketing channel, how I make a living. But as of right now, just shoot me a message. I mean, I'm still around.
Okay. And that's the Natty Pro on Instagram?
Yeah, the Natty Pro on Instagram.
Awesome. And for people who want to keep up to speed with me, that's at Josh_Phil WL PHILWL. Again, kind of echo Ryan's sentiment. As painfully obvious, if most of you have followed me, I'm also not an influencer, just a man who likes podcasts, books, and lifting some weights. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the podcast. If you want, if you're interested in coaching, weightlifting, powerlifting, super total, you can go to philosophicalweightlifting.com. If you want to kind of support me, even though I say this every single podcast because it's entirely true, go go to Weightlifting House and onyxstraps.com, use the code PhilWL at checkout, and that kind of helps support the show and support me. And we will catch you guys next week on another episode of the podcast.